Make a show-stopping chart in Excel. And that means a show-stopping scatter plot chart. Now, charts can be scary, but don't be afraid. Just remember, and this chart is going to tell the story of sugar and water. The hotter the water gets, the more the sugar dissolves. If you drew this idea on a piece of paper, this is what you would have. It's ugly. It's not very precise. It needs numbers, and we need Excel. And here we are at Excel. I have my numbers. I have them in a nice little arrangement with filled-in cells and borders and color. That's so I can understand them and so they stand out. Numbers tell a story. I want them to do a nice job communicating, but there's nothing like a good scatter plot, as we know. So we're going to make one. First, we select temperature. Then we hit Control and select the sugar. Then we go to Insert. Right over here. And we pick out a nice scatter plot. I'm going to pull him up so you can see him. There he is. Now this chart leaves a lot to be desired. This chart leaves a lot to be desired because it doesn't say very much. It doesn't say what I'm measuring. It doesn't have the start points in the right places. The print is gray, it's small. We can fix all of that. The first thing I'm going to do is let this chart know what I'm measuring. So I'm going up here to select data. There, took a couple of tries, but we know we're not measuring series 1, right? We are measuring grams of sugar. I click it and I tell it, okay, grams of sugar. The next thing I want is a legend. So I'm going over here to Quick Layout and I'm picking out a legend. Now I have some axis titles as well. Okay, let's change this. This is temperature. It's Celsius. And we are going to insert a degree symbol, which is way over here. It's a symbol I use a lot, so I can just pick it off. And I close. Now I don't like the size or the color, so I'm going in here, and I'm going back home, and I'm going to pick nice black. And I'm going to make my font 12 points. And I am going to choose Georgia. Go all the way down here to G, and we have Georgia on my mind. That one's done. Now I'm going to go over here. This is grams of sugar. Right? Right. Now we're going to take these grams of sugar. Takes 2 tries sometimes. Select them. Make them black. Make them 12 points. Make them Georgia. I'm going to do the same thing with this axis. 12 points, black, Georgia. Over here. I'm going to make this 12 points, Georgia, black as night. And looks a lot better, except this is also tiny. 9 points. We don't want that. 12 points, black, Georgia. And I'm going to give this chart a pull. These do stretch. And now it's a lot easier to understand, except I forgot the title on top. Let's fix that. black, 16 points, Georgia. And I want to add to this. There we are. Now I understand what's in my chart. There's one silly little label here. I'll get rid of it. But there's still more that we can do. For one thing, neither data series starts in the right place. You can see the empty space at the lower left corner of the chart. But if you think for a moment, this really does not make sense. If water is 0 degrees, this is what you have. Nothing is going to dissolve in it. Similarly, if you have 0 grams of sugar dissolving in the water, this is what you have. Clearly, we need to fix this. What we are going to do now is format the axes. Let's start with the horizontal axis, or the x-axis. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to pick Format Axis. And I'm going to go over here to the bar chart. And let's make that minimum 20 since we started at 25 Celsius. And we're done. That one's done. Now let's do the vertical axis. Format Axis. Go to the bar chart. We know we started at 14 grams of sugar, so I'm going to start a bit below that at 10. And we are done. Here it is. There's still some space in the bottom left part of the chart, but this looks a lot more realistic. Now, what we need to do, and yes, there is still more work to do on this chart, is make this chart look a little nicer. This blue line has blue dots that fade into it and are hardly visible. I don't like this. I want my chart to communicate the same way that when I'm writing numbers, I like to have borders and fill so that you can see what I have and see it's evenly divided. I want my chart to stand out. So what we're going to do is right-click on this line, and we are going to format data series. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to go to my marker, and I'm going to go to my marker options. Now I'm perfectly fine with the built-in marker, but it's not big enough. Let's increase it. It's double the size. I'm also going to give my marker a different color. I don't like blue. I'm going to go to solid fill. I'm going to pick out my colors, and I have a nice orangey red here that I like. There we go. I'm going to add a solid line to the outside of my border, and I'm going to make that line black, and I'm going to increase it. Should be a line everybody can see. Now that line looks wimpy against these nice big buttons, so let's go to the line part of this. And the first thing I'm going to do is change my line color. I'm making it brown. I'm making it a bit thicker. And I am going to go to compound type and make it striped, because that's kind of cute. I'm going to close this. Let all of you see my chart. This is a lot easier to read. The emphasis is a lot better. Now, you would think this chart is finished, but at Perimeter College, professors often ask for a trend line and an equation. It's also known as a linear line. So to get that, we right-click on the data series and we add trend line. That little wimpy blue bunch of dots is your trend line. It's missing an equation, so let's go over here and say display equation on chart. Now, you know how I feel about the way this looks. It also has some other problems, but let's take care of the appearance first. First, you can't read the equation, so let's move it. Move it now. It went. Okay, now the equation is halfway readable. Let's work on the trend line. Right click, format trend line. You could go over here. Those little dots are almost invisible. Let's make this solid. Let's get rid of the dashes. That gets rid of the dashes. Oh God, I don't like that blue. Let's pick another color. I like a nice golden yellow. And I'm going to make this, and I like this much better. Okay, the trend line is visible, but this equation has issues. First of all, it's tiny and gray, so I'm going to run my mouse across it. Then I'm going to change the font to Georgia. I can find Georgia. 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 I'm going to make it black. And by now you can guess what I'm going to do. 12 solid points. That's readable. That looks very pretty. But it has another issue. Look at my numbers. We're only going to 2 significant figures. Your measurements are just not that accurate on this chart. So, we click this again, and we hand edit it. We can round off. 115 becomes 1. 697 becomes 7. And there you have your trend line, your equation, and a very readable chart. And I hope none of this was scary. Thanks for bearing with this long video, and have a great day.